Thank you all so much for being here again at our Rural Transportation Advocacy 101. We were honored to be invited by Hopelink to be able to provide this transportation advocacy. Transportation Choices Coalition, we've been doing advocacy for 33 years, but it meant a lot to be invited by an organization like Hopelink that has over 50 years of experience and deep connections right here in the Snoqualmie Valley doing great work. So one, we were thrilled and honored to be asked to bring this education here. And it was personally really meaningful to me. I grew up just over Novelty Hill, over on the outskirts of what is now Sammamish, but then Redmond at the time. And I grew up going to elementary school at Louisa May Alcott Elementary. And I remember having to be bused or carpooled every single day to school as a kid because there wasn't a safe way for me to walk or ride my bike to elementary school on Highway 202. There wasn't a good way for me to get there. And it was something that I ran into a lot as a young person growing up near this community, that there wasn't a way for me to be independent, to get where I needed to go. And I clearly remember the first time I got to ride my bike on my own to Coldstone and be able to spend my allowance there and the freedom that I felt from that. I'm still riding off the high from it. And it really highlighted to me the impact of what transportation investments in this community can really mean and how they can make you feel and how rich they make your life feel. And as I got a little bit older in high school, I saw that a lot of my friends would cross 228th, a street in now Sammamish, to get to the bus stop. And there wasn't a crosswalk there. They had to cross over a busy street, over a median, to be able to catch that bus. It was something that I felt in my bones that there should be a crosswalk there. There should be an investment there. And I'll be honest, I was not a cool high schooler. I spent my time drawing out what this crosswalk should look like on that street. I emailed the transportation lead at the city of Sammamish at the time, and I was like, we should do this. We should build this crosswalk here. And he was kind enough to take a meeting with me, and I came with my plans, and I made my case, and he brought up a lot of reasonable reasons why this crosswalk shouldn't be put in this place. And it was a real learning experience to me, for me to understand that my passion or focus on this idea wasn't going to be enough to get it over the edge. It wasn't going to be what it took to get a crosswalk built to that bus stop. I needed advocacy. I needed a coalition. I needed others who were calling for this. It was going to take organizing and more work to get it done. And that really was one of the things that guided me into this work to do this for the last 12 years and really highlighted that these communities need voices, they need stories, they need people organizing together to make change here. Because like we heard on this panel, so many of the investments in these communities, they don't rise up to the top of the list in terms of jobs or population. They need powerful stories to make the case for them. So today, I'm going to dive into a little bit about why advocacy matters, who does what, talk a little bit about the principles of advocacy that guides our work at Transportation Choices Coalition, and then talk about how to deliver your message. And then after that, we're going to take some of these lessons and do a testimony workshop all together. They'll give you the chance to write a testimony and deliver it to this audience. And transportation advocacy matters because if you look around our communities, our built environments, when you see a sidewalk, someone had to advocate for that. Or if you see a lack of a sidewalk, that could also be from advocacy, someone not wanting an investment there, or people just following the status quo. Advocacy leads to the built environment that we live in the communities that we call home. And so we want to change them, we need to get invested in it. And I think that was seen most resonant for me in a voice of someone we've worked with in the Tri-Cities, Jaime Torres, who shared his story with us of why he gets involved in his community.
All Washingtonians deserve to be able to get to where they need to go. And we should be able to walk, bike, roll, and take transit to get there. When we do, it's better for our wallets, our health, our air, and our water. But for far too long, our state has poured money into expanding highways instead of investing in people and communities, leaving us fighting for scraps to fund our sidewalks, trails, and transit. My name is Jaime Torres. Every day, I try to get around, I know that the system wasn't made for me. Getting around is vital to everyone, no matter your race, class, ability, or zip code. And right now, our transportation system is broken. Our sidewalks are in disrepair, transit doesn't run as often as we need it to, and we have to fear for our health and safety. The people who made this system neglected to make it for people who use mobility devices like me. It just feels so difficult and unsafe for me to get around, and I know I'm not the only one in that. I've tried climbing Badger Mountain many times. I didn't make it to the top 3 times, but I don't give up. Neither do Washingtonians. I know we can make our transportation system better. I know we can make it work for everyone. Together, we can improve transportation across Washington. We can fill the potholes and build better sidewalks. We can fund more and better transit. We can keep people safe. And we can protect the air we breathe, water we drink, and land we call home for future generations. Together, we can fix what's broken. Together, we can climb that mountain.
So Jaime's story is incredibly inspiring, and you were inspired by our panelists earlier today, and you are here, in the mid-morning on a Friday, on a weekday, to be here for a workshop about rural transportation advocacy. You are passionate, you want to make a difference in your community. But half the battle is knowing who to advocate to, and that's what we're going to dive in first. Paul asked a great question to the panel: who do I bring up my concern to? Who should I share my story with? And so we're going to start out with just a quick activity and exercise. We have a bucolic scene here in Duvall on a beautiful sunny day that is clearly not today, of the Snoqualmie Valley Transportation Shuttle here picking up riders. Every element of this photo is managed by some level of government or agency that you can advocate to. So we're going to do a quick activity, and I know there are a lot of transportation experts in here, so it's going to be really embarrassing for me when something is wrong here, so just tell me that. So first, I want to point out an element on this photo, and I'd love to hear from the audience who they think is responsible, what level of government they think is responsible for that. Let's start out with the sidewalk that these riders are riding. Who, if you wanted to change this sidewalk or fix it, who would you advocate to? Great answer. It depends, but the city is mostly the right answer. It depends on what type of roadway it is. If it's a sidewalk in the city of Duvall, that's something you would call up Mayor Okerlander to help fix. If it's on a county road, then you need to call up your county, you need to call up Councilmember Perry to ask for investments there. It depends on where the investment is. All right, let's take this bus stop that's in the photo. If you wanted to change, say, the location of it or change the service at that bus stop, who should you advocate to? Yeah. I see the Metro staff pointing there. Yes, but also that is the right answer, but also who's Metro's bosses? Who controls Metro? It's also the county. And I think the fact is there's different answers to a lot of these highlights some of the tensions. Yes.
I just happen to know that that particular bus stop is a coordination between the city of Duvall, King County Metro, so also city of Duvall.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the beautiful complexities about all this work is the overlapping natures of it. And as someone who in a previous job wrote an 80-page report about how to make better bus stops, I can nerd out about this issue for a while. Let's take this street that's in the photo. If you want to make this street, say, slower or safer to cross, or if you want to fix a pothole in it, who should you advocate to? You're right, it depends on where it is. If it's a county road, you should advocate to the county. If it's a road within an incorporated area like Duvall or Carnation, you should call up Mayor Hawkins. But If it's a road like, say, Highway 203 that's out here, that's a stressful road, that's actually owned by our state Department of Transportation. It's a state highway. And so you need to call up Osman if you want to get change or investment in that roadway. It's complicated how all this overlaps. Oh, and then, all right, Snoqualmie Valley Transit. I know there's a lot of experts here, and I know this is a little bit more complicated. But if you want to get SVT to run more often, who should you call? Mayor Hawkins.
Well, the first thing you have to do is get King County Council to actually fund more of CAT funding that goes to SVT and mostly High Shuttle for every year. And then maybe provide lots and lots of grants. Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like Amy could answer better. But
No, you did good at that.
Yeah.
I am not an expert, I'm a dental hygienist, but from my understanding is the first thing you have to do is get King County Council to fund something called CAT funding. So that's mostly goes to high shuttles, that goes to senior centers, a little bit goes to SVT, and that is completely controlled by the council. Then, after that, more funding from Metro, that's actually from CAT, and Amy does tons of grants from the Snoqualmie Tribe. There's some money from WASDOT. What's the other source?
Those are the primary sources.
And so it's really complicated because then you have to then get a traffic study. So let's say you want, and I do want, a second bus stop in Duvall near the high school. You then have to have a place to do a roundabout because for some reason there are these weird laws that are stupid that unless someone has a disability, you can't go on high school property. Dumb, dumb, dumb. So it takes so much to get a second bus stop. And then is it $10,000 or $20,000 more a month to get a second one? Because you have to get you have to redo all the stops. So they're no longer an hour, it'll be maybe hour and a half loop instead of an hour. And then more staff. What did I miss?
Oh, you got a lot of it.
So it's really complicated. And that's what the issue is. It's not just a quick fix. And so it's not just being a squeaky wheel to the city. It's the city and unincorporated King County and Metro, and then asking them to take money from High Shuttle and put to SVT, and then somehow getting roads built and new staff hired, which is really hard. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I mean, you illustrated the point perfect. It's not exactly clear. And that's why if it was clear of exactly who to go to all the time, this would be easy and we wouldn't be doing a training on it. And our final one here, just to highlight, is look at these riders. Say if you want to help them get, if you want to make their transit pass more affordable or be able to get them a transit pass or change how it was paid for, who would you advocate for to that? Yeah, that is one group. The transit passes, ORCA passes are managed by the county and the county council. But if you're youth fare, it's paid for through state grants. And on top of all of this, there's different layers of where the money comes from for these investments in sidewalks and streets. There's money coming from the state and the county on all this. And it's not a perfect, easy answer. And that's where the conflicts really come into play. And trying to figure out who can deliver the improvement that you want is half the battle. And so we're going to take a super simplistic approach, just starting from the out in, to talk about what each little layer of government does, go through a quick run through of this. This is, Schoolhouse Rock, to talk about who is typically responsible for what and where you should start out in asking for improvements. We're going to start out at the big kahuna, the highest level, the federal government. The federal government typically provides huge amounts of funding and grants to transportation projects in our state. They provide grants to state departments of transportation, and they also set standards and policies. But they also provide a huge amount of funding to our interstate highways and provide funding to our transit agencies. But as we know, one person can't change federal government. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was a little bit of an exaggeration. Changing things here takes a long time and huge coalitions. One step further down, you've got state government, which is where a lot of the action happens for transportation in our communities. Our state government down in Olympia can set standards and policies on top of the federal guidelines. And as we've talked about earlier, they provide funding to cities and agencies to be able to run transit service or build sidewalks and roadways. A lot of funding came from things like Move Ahead Washington, the transportation package that provided free transit for youth. And a lot of that money from that package comes to transit agencies through transit support grants. And rural areas have grants called rural mobility grants. But the state really owns our interstates. They were built and funded by the federal government, but they're owned by our state government. And they also own highways like Highway 203 right out here. The state has a lot of transportation committees that individuals can get involved in, and they even provide grants to folks here in the room. And just to give a sense of how much the state plays in the transportation system in our community, we have a little map of the Main Street highways that they own that run through our incorporated cities and towns. And some of the meanest, gnarliest roads that you'll see in your community are typically owned by the state. And so it's always good to really understand when you're going through your community and you want to add a sidewalk, want to add an improvement on, looking for that highway sign with the outline of George Washington's face is key to help you know who's the owner of it. Going one step down, we have the county government. If you want to invest in county roads or in infrastructure in unincorporated areas, or to get more money for folks that like Metro, you need to advocate to Councilmember Perry. The county is kind of this quiet but very powerful level of government, especially on transportation. And our transit agencies in Washington State are typically managed by our county governments. And so going to your county government is usually a good first step if you want to get more transit service run in your community. And the county plays an especially huge role in rural areas. This is a map of the roads that are county owned in our county. And as you can see, Duvall is right there in the heart of all those red roads in the very top of the map. So many of the roads up here that lie outside of Duvall and Carnation are managed by the county and the local services division, where if you want to get investments in those roads, you need to be able to go to your county council member. Going one step down, we have a lot of agencies that manage so much of the transportation and especially transit infrastructure in our communities. King County Metro is managed by the King County Council, but it's a large agency in its own right. If you want to make your bus run more frequent, if you want to get an affordable transit pass, they're the ones you should ask or send a question to first, likely before going to the King County Council. They're funded by a sales tax in our community, and they play a deep role in transit in the Snoqualmie Valley. And then we're going to go down to the level of government right here, and it's really an honor to have Mayor Hawkins in the room. City governments are where a lot of the action happens. They're responsible for the streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure within cities. And they're the place where it's likely the easiest for you to get involved in your community. They have local boards that you can join. They're also really, really powerful in the local permitting authority they have over projects. If people want to make a project happen in their community, cities have a large say in that. And so, it's also likely the most accessible form of government for you to be able to get involved in and provide your advocacy to. And I think that's really represented today by having the mayor of Carnation in the room with us here today. So I did a quick School of Rock run through of all these layers of governments, and we talked about how complicated it can be. So now we're going to do a quick activity with your table mates. Say you want to add a crosswalk on a street in Duvall. Who would you contact? I want you to take just 2-3 minutes with your table groups to talk about what approach you would take to do this. And try and choose a street, for instance, in your community. All right, let's come on back together. I want to hear from 2 of the tables in here. What was their approach? Can we have one table be willing to say who they would contact if they want to add a crosswalk in Duvall? Thank you. We've got a mic coming for you. Yeah.
Hi. So we talked about there's different entry points that you could call. So you could call the city administrator and chat with the city administrator about it. If Duvall has a transportation or public safety committee amongst their council and community members, your entry point could be contacting the committee that is involved with public safety or transportation, or you could contact the mayor. So different entry points depending on who you want to contact or perhaps who you know or who is most accessible to you.
I love that. Thanks. Did anyone else have a different answer? Yeah, right over there.
So our group mentioned that, looking at your story earlier where you talked about the need to build coalitions and kind of come with a united front to present new ideas. We talked about how Snoqualmie Valley has a group that can't engage in advocacy, but has a lot of folks that are, very invested in transportation in the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition. So maybe you could attend some of those meetings, connect with that group, and see if you can find like-minded individuals that could partner with you before going to the city to engage in advocacy.
Yeah, those are two great approaches. And I think, one, I think it really highlights the, sorry, you had your hand up, dude.
This is the city council person from the city of Duvall, so she had her hand. Oh, just when you.
No, don't, yeah.
I think all the points, Amy McHenry, I'm on the Duvall City Council, so I chuckled with the particular photo that you put up there because immediately I'm like, well, that's also a highway. So I think the simple answer is starting with the city. Like the city manager from Carnation had said, they can help guide you to, who you would need to talk to, but starting with the city is great. But depending on where in Duvall that crosswalk is that you want to add, you might be adding in the state, but also the county as well. We have Woodinville Duvall Road and Highway 203, and that intersection also starts to touch the county as well. So we have some very interesting dynamics that would just bring in like 3 different agencies to just add a crosswalk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, one.
Yes. So my name is Amy Bragg. I'm with the City of Monroe. I'm previously planner with the City of Duvall and actually worked on this project, the Main Street project, and I know the city fought really hard for good crosswalks on 203 and the state fought back. And so that's why you don't see really well delineated sidewalks along this area. They're getting better over time, but that's why you just see the concrete and the asphalt difference there. And I think the city's been working really hard trying to get it as safer crossings on there.
It's like you all are plants in this audience. This is perfect. No, you're highlighting the challenges here. And I think it all depends on what street it is. We're gonna keep moving. There'll be more time for activities, but it all depends on which street you're trying to get the improvement in. But it's always great to start local. Start by talking to your local city if you're in an incorporated area, if that's where the improvement you want. Because where these layers of government really kind of where they border is where advocacy can be the most powerful. It's where things can potentially fall through the gaps. It's where potentially the city might want something, but it's the state's responsibility. So it needs people from a community speaking out and saying they want these to help get things done. But you all highlighted this perfectly, that it's not an easy answer about who to contact, but you have to start somewhere. And usually starting at your local government or your county government is a great way to start. So one, thank you to our council members and mayors who are in the room who can provide an opportunity for people to get in contact with. So one, now that we talked a little bit about where to direct your advocacy and how to start on directing your advocacy, I'm going to share a little bit about some of the principles of advocacy we use to shape our work at Transportation Choices Coalition to really start to get into the 101. And we define these in 4 ways. That first, you need to know the issue, you need to know your approach, you need to know who your friends are, and know what your message is. And we're going to talk about these approaches to advocacy, and then I'm going to talk about where you should deliver this message to, and that'll help inform our testimony workshops that will kick off in just a moment. First, knowing the issue. There is so much information out here, and I'm going to highlight the city of Carnation as well. Knowledge is power. If you can know the issue, know the improvement that you want, know who owns the roadway, or know what investments are happening along that, those are great entry points into your advocacy and will help you be more effective in winning the investment that you want. And we're lucky to live in a community in the Snoqualmie Valley where our local jurisdictions provide a ton of that information that's up there. And I'll also tell you a secret that some of the best information is in the council packets. We have great staff at these communities who provide information reports to the council members and the decision makers. And if you're looking for what's going to come before the council, or if you're seeing a project in your community and driving or walking past and wondering what that is, you can likely find information about it on your city's website. So to start by knowing the issue, take the time, dive in, learn more about what your city is currently working on, see if there's anything happening in the corridor that you're looking at, and that'll likely really guide and inform your advocacy. And if you can find some moment where a similar topic is happening on the council, that's a moment where you can ask a question about, why isn't this improvement that I'm seeing included in this? And it's a great entry point into that. So knowing the issue, understanding this is as well as you can is going to help make your advocacy more effective. You also need to talk about what your approach to advocacy should be. And in our work, we typically talk about in advocacy, you have the inside game and the outside game. The inside game is where, yes, you get to be a lobbyist. And a lobbyist is sometimes seen as a bad word, but it really means pushing for a cause that you care about through the normal channels of power. That can be talking to your legislator, talking to your decision maker. It can be providing testimony through a city council meeting or a county council meeting, or it can be emailing them. Those are all ways that or what we call the inside game, working within the main channels. The other approach that you can take to advocacy is the outside game. This is what we typically see in the streets, and outside advocacy has won so many landmark pieces of legislation that we've seen in our country, from the ADA to gay marriage. It is rallies, it's marches, it's letter writings, it's petitions, it's doing earned media through press. This is a rally that we organized with some partners who are also here in the room around trying to get a bus rapid transit line built in Lake Forest Park to connect to Kenmore and Bothell. This is where you're trying to push from the outside. And the most effective, or the biggest outside game, is shaping elections, shaping who's in positions of power. And that's how you can get shape those conversations and asking questions during election cycles of people running for office, of whether they care about your issue or whether they know about your issue. And once you've kind of decided your approach, you need to take a moment to understand who your friends are and who you should talk to about championing your issue. And that's where we use something in our advocacy at TCC called power mapping. Can I see a quick show of hands? Has anyone done a power map in the room? There we go. It's pretty common. Long story short, it's a way for you to understand who cares about your issue and who has the power to get you what you want. It's simple to do. Get a flip chart, get some sticky notes, get a marker, and on your y-axis, you're going to put who's the most powerful person or organization at the top who can help you get what you want. At the bottom, you're going to put the least powerful. On your x-axis, you're going to put who disagrees with you and who agrees with you. And then you start to write out who are the organizations or the people that you want to influence or you think have power here. And you start to map them out. It's very helpful to shape your approach, and because it helps you find out who could be your friends, who could be a part of a coalition with you, and also helps you understand who you need to potentially move from, say, strongly disagree to strongly agree to get the improvement that you want. At TCC, we also use something called messaging triangles to shape our message. This is a little bit like your English class, where you had your English teacher ask you to develop a thesis and create 3 paragraphs to help support your thesis. A message triangle is really similar to that, but in this cool triangular graphic. You put your message and your objective at the center of this graphic, and then you come up with 3 different messages that will resonate with some of the audiences that you identified in your power map. Those messages should be different, but they should all further your objective at the center. And this is a really helpful tool for when you're crafting your testimony, and just a great exercise to go through. All right, so now that you've taken a moment to know the issue, know what your approach is, know who your friends are, and know what your message is, the big question is how to deliver your message. And there's different ways to do that. The first is meeting with the decision maker, reaching out to them. You have a great opportunity to do that in the room with some decision makers right here. It's a great way to build relationships with them, as Councilmember Perry was talking about, and how key that is to successful advocacy. And it's really important if the representative or the decision maker, if you're their or constituent to them. It makes saying yes to having that meeting with you and connecting with them easier. And just take for a moment when you're thinking about reaching out to a decision maker or an elected official about what level of government they are and what level of staffing they'll have. It might shape whether or not they can champion or take on your issue and continue to advocate for it, or if they're, say, if their role is part-time, they may need your help in carrying it forward and doing coalition building around it and raising awareness to it. Not only can you meet or talk with the decision makers, but another approach you have to delivering your message is emailing or calling your decision maker. This can be a coordinated effort with a lot of emails or calls to amplify your message. And also, when you're emailing or calling, be aware of the staff capacity that that decision maker has. If you're emailing, say, a Sarah Perry or Representative Salahuddin, they have staff who will summarize your message to the representative. And what's really important, as Osman brought up, that providing your personal story is going to make your message stand out in face of the thousands of emails and calls that they get about different issues. You can also deliver your message through coalitions. And I think this is a really important thing to start. You brought up working with the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition. I think that's a great example of this. After you've done your power mapping, you'll likely figure out that you have friends, you have allies who care about the issue that you care about. And it's important to connect with them and see if they'd be willing to amplify your message. And if you can work in coalition, as Councilmember Perry talked about, that's how we go farther. We can go quicker alone, but we can go farther together. And second to last, if you want to get your message out, you can do something that is probably something you want to wait to a little bit lower down the line, but you can use the press. Using the press is a way to get your message out, and we're lucky in the Snoqualmie Valley to have local journalism like the Snoqualmie Valley Record that can publish op-eds. And really, op-eds are the key way that you can use the press to be able to get a message out without having to use scarce time of reporters by providing an op-ed. And what's key is the messenger for the op-ed is almost as important as what's being said in the op-ed. If you can find someone through your power mapping who has power and you can have them write your op-ed, that's a really effective way to get your message and get your objective done. All right, and now this brings us to the bread and butter of how you should deliver your message. That's public comment. Real fast, raise of hands. Who has actually done public comment here in the room? There we go. All right, we got about 2/3 of the room, so this is perfect. Today, we're gonna dive into a messaging workshop to shape your testimony, and then you're gonna get a chance to practice it in front of the group here. Really, the key things to public testimony are to add your personal touch, really have your message at the thing that you're asking for at the beginning of your testimony and at the end of the testimony. And I think to Councilmember Perry's comment is to be respectful, to know that when you're providing public testimony, while you may feel really, really passionate about something, it's a person on the other end of that testimony. And if you can be respectful, that is really going to help your message get across. So let's dive into it. Let's dive into a testimony workshop. So we are going to take a very quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to work together writing out a testimony, and then we're going to deliver that testimony based on a scenario up to this audience. So before we wrap, I just want to go over that when it comes to advocacy, knowledge is power. Create a plan. Use some of the tools that we talked about in terms of power mapping and the message triangle to shape what you want. Reach out to potential allies or potential coalitions. First, talk to your representative. Get to know how they feel about this before you make an ask. Make sure to coordinate with other stakeholders and problem solve different ways to get something done. We heard a lot about that on getting a sidewalk on a state route. How can you coordinate to help get the outcome that you want? And remember that you're going to have other asks down the line. The thing you want right now isn't the only thing you're going to want. And so building relationships to help get those other things done in the future is key. So with that, thank you so much for listening to this Transportation Advocacy 101. We're going to take 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and dive into our testimony workshop. Thank you so much. We're going to ask for ideally 3 volunteers to come up and deliver their testimony to myself and and come up here to the podium and provide this testimony to the audience. Can I get the first volunteer who'd be willing to come up? I see people pointing at Salwa. Yeah. All right, so Iz and I are going to, like true public commenting, time this. If we get to 3 minutes, we are going to end. We are gonna, set the alarm on our phone. We're gonna be thank you for your time. Most decision makers are very strict on the time amount, so we're gonna do the same. So Salwa, will you come up here and provide your testimony on weekend service on Snoqualmie Valley Transit? The clock starts now.
Okay, hi. Thank you very much, council members, for being here to listen to our testimony today. My name is Salwa Raphael. I'm a Carnation resident, and I have an aging parent in North Bend at the Snoqualmie Ridge Apartments. I would like to urge council to consider expanding SVT weekend service, including door-to-door service. It's essential for our family to have weekend service to keep my mom connected to her family and friends in Carnation. In December, she lost her ability to drive, much to her fury and dismay, but it was important based for health and safety reasons. It would be a 2-hour driving commitment for us to pick her up in North Bend, bring her back to Carnation, and then return at the end of the day. Weekend service will contribute to her mental and physical health, for her to be able to connect to her community and not isolated. Thank you for your consideration.
That was fantastic. I want to hear from the audience. What did you like about Salwa's testimony? What resonated with you?
Personal story.
Personal story from Laura. What else did people hear? Stacy.
Okay, you can really picture like that 2-hour commute and the impact that has.
No, the visual. I felt that pain. I felt your personal story. I also have a parent who had to lose their license, and it's tough, and that resonated with me. You also had great eye contact. What else did people hear, or what resonated with them?
She asked for an additional consideration, the door-to-door service.
Yeah. I love this. Salwa, you set the bar high. All right, who else would be interested to come up to give their public testimony? Yeah, come on up.
So this is really funny because I'm actually giving testimony to get the job that I actually currently work as a bus driver for SVT. So let me say that yeah.
And timing starting
now.
All right, hello, council members. My name is David Jean, and I am a resident of North Bend. The Snoqualmie Valley Transportation Valley Shuttle currently only runs Monday through Friday, and there is a problem with people in general in the valley only being able to travel on those days. Number one is access to employment. Without being able to make connections on the weekend days, it makes it difficult for people like my neighbor Saul, who works at the casino from 9 p.m. to 10 a.m. Between a Friday and Saturday. He's obviously No one wants to work that shift, but he does it, and he can also save a lot of money by being able to ride the Valley Shuttle to take that. And then the other thing that weekends are good for is recreation, particularly for young people who need to be able to move around the valley where there isn't a lot of options for stuff to do in their one town, but maybe if they go to and from towns, they can feel more connected and be just more involved citizens. Thank you.
Yeah. That was a great job. And your name again? David. David. What did everyone like about David's testimony?
Specific information.
Exactly. Specifics.
Personal stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Financial concerns are real.
The story about your friend was really compelling.
All right. Do we have a third person to be willing to come up and give their testimony? Yeah, Ed. And with no notes. I love this. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, Council. My name is Ed Holmes. I live in the Snoqualmie Valley, and it is Friday afternoon, and I just got home from a long work week. I'm looking in my cupboard, looking at what am I going to feed my family this weekend. I see the cupboard's looking pretty bare. I also think about my mother who lives with us. She needs her medications, and I'm wondering, how do I get to the pharmacy to get her medications? I think about these things, and I realize there really are no good options for me. If only there were a transportation on the weekend, and I know Snoqualmie Valley Transportation has weekday service, they don't have weekend service. And I want you to know just what a difference that would make. So I'm here to advocate for extra funding for Snoqualmie Valley Transportation to include weekend services. It's great that it does it during the week, but there's a number of us who can't access certain things during the week because we have to work full-time to support our family. And then, like I say, when I come home and I have no way to access the things we need, it's pretty difficult for us to navigate that. So again, I would implore you to consider what you're thinking about as far as funding for additional services, because that would mean a lot to me, my family, and I know other neighbors and friends who are in similar situations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ed. What resonated with people from Ed's testimony? Mayor Hawkins.
He painted a picture, I could visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. What else?
2 asks. One in the beginning and a wrap-up ask.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Highlighting the need for food and medication, some really essential things that people have to have.
Exactly. These were 3 really powerful testimonies. David, Ed, Salwa, thank you so much for getting up here and giving it, because it's a little nerve-wracking to be up there in front of this audience, even though this is home turf. Well, thank you so much for running through this workshop testimony. No, it's nerve-wracking. And I'm someone who has given probably 3-digit public testimonies now, and I get nervous going up in front of to give public testimony, just because it is something where you feel really strongly about the issue. You want it to go your way, and sometimes you're saying things that you know people don't agree with you on, and wanting to deliver it well can be really, really hard, but really, really rewarding. So thank you so much for going through this exercise and going through this scenario. I'm certain that Vice Chair Barang thinks that we should fund weekend service on Snoqualmie Valley Transportation. All right, well, that's bringing us to the end of our testimony workshop and our Advocacy 101. But we're really just scratching the surface on this work. And of course, the best way to learn is by getting out there, testifying, speaking, talking to your legislators, meeting other potential allies, and using some of the strategies that we shared today, like power mapping and messaging triangles, to shape your message, find your allies, and shape your asks. And I think what's really important in this work is also to celebrate and take time to recognize your wins. If your advocacy changes something in your community, recognizing that's really hard. Don't just run off into the next thing or dive into the next campaign. Take a moment, celebrate it, recognize it, and celebrate with all the people who worked with you to get something done, because this is hard work. So thank you so much for taking your Friday, for being here, for listening to this testimony. I'm going to pass it off to Iz Barang, our Education Engagement Manager, to wrap up. Oh, yeah. And Iz reminded me that, like I said, we're just scratching the surface on this. And this is really the second time we've done this type of transportation advocacy, so thank you for bearing with us. But if you're a nerd like me, there's a ton of other great resources out there. There is an amazing book from Karen Kaiser, who's was a legislator in Washington State, about that getting elected is the easy part. It covers a lot of what we covered in our resources in the Advocacy 101. And there's just a lot of great resources there. You can also go to the Washington State Legislature, which was a body of government we didn't dive into too much here, but has a lot of authority. And there's a ton you can learn there on the state legislature website. And then if you're a real nerd like me, this is a great list. It's pretty much the syllabus from some of my public policy classes at New York University, just on books that talk about how you can shape public policy, how you can get involved, and how it's crafted. And I can't recommend enough the book at the very end of this list, Policy Paradox by Deborah Stone, which was a really important book in my learning. So happy to share this. We'll be sharing out these resources, but there's so much you can dive into this work. So now let me pass it off to Iz to wrap us up. Yes.
Thank you, Kirk. We also want to share some ways to stay engaged with this work. If you want to stay involved locally, the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition meets monthly on the second Friday of the month. The next task force meeting is on July 11th from 10:30 a.m. to noon. And to learn more, you can go to this website or talk to Lynn McCarthy, who is in the room, the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coordinator, who was also a very big part of putting this event together today. And then later in the year, as you heard about already from Anna on the panel, September 29th to October 5th is Week Without Driving, and we encourage you to take part in this annual nationwide initiative started right here in Washington State by Disability Rights Washington. We invite people to experience what it's like to navigate daily life without relying on a personal vehicle for this week. And this is a really great opportunity to use some of the skills we talked about today to share more about this initiative with decision makers and invite them to participate too. There are some flyers on the back table about Week Without Driving as well. Lastly, I want to take a moment to extend an enormous thank you to the people involved in making this event happen. Thank you so much to Hopelink, to Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition, and to the Washington Department of Transportation. Kirk and I have worked closely with Stacy Sahu, Lynn McCarthy, and Heather Clark from Hopelink and the Snoqualmie Valley Mobility Coalition, and Mariana Hannafeld at the Washington Department of Transportation. They've been such wonderful partners, and it has truly been such a pleasure to work with them. Thank you also to Megan Altimore for sharing some words with us this morning, to our extraordinary panel for joining us today, and for sharing their valuable insight. And then I also want to give a massive thank you to Tim Corey, our graphic recorder, Laura LeBlanc, our real-time captioner, the staff at Playfish Media for filming the event, and especially Marcy, who has graciously put up with so many emails from me. Dawn at Carnation Cafe for providing this delicious food, which you are just moments away from getting your hands on. Also responsible for the pastries at breakfast. And Crystal Dixon and the Riverview School District building staff for this great venue. Laura Lowe for taking photos today. McKenna from TCC, and the Hopelink staff for setup and day of support. It's made a huge difference. Huge thanks to Kirk for moderating and facilitating such a wonderful workshop today. And lastly, thanks to all of you for showing up and participating in today's workshop. We really appreciate your time and your energy, and we're excited to keep this conversation going. So thanks a lot. Enjoy lunch, take the post-event survey, and stay in touch. Thanks.